All right, we're going to start. Yeah, we might want to turn that other light on. We got a little shadow. Yeah, there we go. So, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are. I'm Lightheart. We are live at the Digital Republic in Toronto, Ontario. As you can see, I'm not at the Tower of Power, penthouse in Vancouver. We're here, right here. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. So, as you can see, usually I do this in the comfort of my own home, but we are in my own home here in Ontario. I was actually born in Ontario, and it's an exciting time. We do this each and every week, usually at 6 p.m., but we did it at 5 p.m. so that we could let these wonderful people go home. That's Pacific Standard Time. We're also talking about what's happening here at Eastern Time. So it's 8 o'clock in the evening. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I will talk to the crowd sometimes. I will talk to the video sometimes. That's just the world we live in, okay? Tonight's topic is something that's really important to everybody who wants to build an online business, whoever wants to build an online family, who wants to do something special in their community. It's something that touches all of us. It's something that we all respond to. It's something that we all love. It's something we all admire. And it's all something most of us secretly wish to be. And that is a leader. What is a leader? How do you elicit leadership? What does leadership look like? And what are some of the policies, the principles, the activities that allow you to become recognized as a leader? So we're going to get into that today. Keep in mind that this is, I can't say that this is truth or this is falsehood. This is my opinion and my experience that I have learned over the last 25 years being a high-level athlete, competing in the universe, developing an online business company with 15 of my partners, which is now 15 years, which is a big endeavor that I've been undertaking for the last decade and a half, that we help people around the world. This is something that I've inspired to be in my community and with my family, and with the business that we all do together. And more importantly, it is something that I myself have also struggled with, things that I've had challenged or things that I have exposed. So I'm not here to say I'm the great leader or anything else. These are some things I've learned about studying leadership and attempting to be a leader and being a leader. I do not do this perfectly. I do not have this all figured out, but I will share with you and hopefully inspire you to get a couple things that I've learned along the way that may help you in your own endeavor. Sound fair? Yeah. So thank you. Thank you out there for the hell yes out there. So let's get into this topic. I think, what is the first quality that is required of a leader? I believe that is vision. Vision. Okay, so what is vision? What does it mean? What is real vision is? So vision, I would say, has the ability to hold something in our minds in the futures. And humans have this unique ability that we are able to actually project out ideas into the future, which is different than other species. Species kind of operate on a kind of an autopilot, universal operating system of some sort. So tigers act like tigers, chicken acts like chickens, salmon act like salmon. They all kind of do their thing. It's why birds kind of move together, right? Some people call that morphogenic fields, you know, that all the birds turn at the same time, right? So they're not actually responding to each other. They're actually responding to some universal frequency. This has actually been proven in Whole Foods cameras, as they would actually demonstrate that people in one side of the grocery store move a certain way, and people on the other side of the grocery store who do not know each other are actually doing this. You can also get on a bus or a subway, and if you're on there long enough, everybody will start to sit a certain way, and through heartbeats and stuff, will start to acclimatize to each other. Now, what's interesting about humans, and I can remember as early as grade 8 when we were studying statistics. You guys remember statistics? Do you remember the bell curve and all that sort of stuff? And there was mean, mode, and medium, and the different ways to arrive at statistical probabilities, and so that you would get the mean or the meridian or where the middle of the bell curve, and there was a distribution curve over that based, and it's standard throughout all of the universe. It's pretty remarkable stuff. And I got kicked out of class for that particular one because we were putting dots all on the piece of paper, and here was the line, and here is the bell curve. And then there was these outliers on the end. And I asked the teacher, I said, Mr. Ramsey, I have a question. If everybody is here in the middle of this bell curve thing that you call the mean or the mode or the median or whatever the heck that is, and you had all these dots which represented people. I said, how far does, if one dot, one of these people, how far to the extreme do they need to go to move the center? Now, I was in grade 8. I didn't really know that much. I still don't know that much. But I would say that was my first foray into understanding or considering or contemplating what I felt leadership was. At that time, I had been exposed to a fellow by the name of Mahatma Gandhi, who was able to galvanize 700 million plus Indians to stand up against the British Empire, which the sun never set on, literally had colonies all around the world, and said no. And he did it without firing bullets. He did it without violence. He did it by an iron will and the willingness to die for his beliefs. And to me, that is what I think a visionary is. A visionary is a person on the positive side that can see a future that is inviting a large or small or medium or large group, but a group of people to take actions outside of their normal range or their comfort zone in attempts to evolve or develop ourselves better or to reach a common goal that we have associated a set of values for. In a positive state, it might be a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King. In a negative state, it might be a Genghis Khan or more recently a Hitler. Both, now those are what I would call the positive and negative qualities of leadership. So becoming a leader does not necessarily give you moral authority. There are leaders of gangs, okay, and there are leaders of Doctors Without Borders. And so when you look at leadership, sometimes if you study both sides, both the dark aspects of leadership and the light or positive aspects of leadership, I think you get a better idea of what leadership actually is, because you can see the commonalities. And if you're deciding to be a leader, I think it's important to do both so that you check yourself before you wreck yourself. Most horrific leaders started out with good intentions. And if you find yourself in a company or an organization or a group or a social situation where there is a leader which you are having a conflict with or you feel is not operating from that principle, separate the aspects of leadership that they're demonstrating from the person, have compassion for them. That doesn't mean that you should go along with the program, but just recognize they're just a leader who's lost. And there are plenty of lost leaders. They're still leaders, but they're leading people to destruction. And some inadvertently so, and some, there are psychopaths and sociopaths who manipulate people because they're not bound by the regular social constructs that hold people together. And that's really important to state that so that people understand that just becoming a leader, just having a vision is important, but having a vision that's couched in a form of ethics is really important. And ethics, you can look up the great teachers of Greeks. The Greeks, if you look at the Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, there's some books out there called Ethics, which really explores the topic far better than I ever will, okay? And the great religions of the world are various interpretations of what ethics is. And unfortunately, most people have an incomplete, what I'd say, aspect of ethics, because oftentimes your ethics don't really get tested. And there's group ethics and there's individual ethics. And when you become a leader, you are going to be challenged and you are going to be criticized about the choices that you make from people who do not have to make those choices. Because as leaders, you make choices sometimes for the good of a few or sometimes for the good of the all, depending on what the organization or what your mandate is for that particular area. And invariably, whether it's a small group or a large group, some people aren't going to resonate with that. And that's why I believe the nonviolent movements are so powerful, simply because it leaves the option of, if I'm wrong, at least nobody got killed or hurt or maimed. And I think that's a powerful thing. And so that's where compassion comes in ethics, to have compassion for oneself and have compassion and empathy for other people who might criticize you, yet not be swayed by it, to listen and consider, is what this person is saying is true? And this is real. This is the humility that great leaders have, is the ability to listen and consider if what they're hearing is true, to see if their choices and their actions and behaviors are actually reflective, and to make adjustments if they see it fit. And that is the foundation of good monarchies and good democracies. Dictatorships, for the most part, tend to elicit the dark side of leadership, because they are totalitarian regimes which work really well in crisis situations for limited amounts of times, but over the long term, it tends to compromise the happiness or well-being or possibility matrix of great groups. And we've seen the experiments throughout humanity with the great, what I would say, religious and political movements out there, which have a variance of how well they've turned out. You all follow me on that sort of thing? So I just want to set the tone of what we're going to talk about leadership. And then we're going to get into that's what I would define leadership is, the ability of that one person to move what I would say the medium, whether it's a small group or a big group. And of course, the bigger the group is, the more that the principles I'm going to talk about here, that leader needs to embody in their daily life. And the more that they do that, they access what I call power. And power gives them the ability to move great movements of people. It's not because of the words they say, although that's part of it. It's not because of the presentation, but it is a measure of the times and the situation and the alignment with what I call of powerful, energetic forces of consciousness, which dominates all of existence. Okay, that's very kind of an esoteric idea. So vision. All leaders start with a vision. And sometimes that's a small vision. If it's your family, if you're taking on the leadership role in your family, and that might be, hey, I want to have a safe home with food on the table and joy in the hearts of everybody. And each of us has a home. You don't have to be a leader in the world. I think be a leader at home first, and become that leader and embody the best aspects of yourself and share those with the members of your family. And sometimes it'll be co-leadership. You might lead the family in one direction and your partner might lead the person in the other direction, and allow for that to happen and learn from those things. Because sometimes it's nice to follow a leader, and sometimes it's nice to be a leader. And I think great leaders at first learn how to be a great follower. And I think that you should never forget that component. And I think that you should be following a leader in some area of a life so that you maintain that relationship. When I was coaching people in the fitness world, I always had a coach. As I coach people in the business world, I still have a coach, because I need to be reminded about the experience of a coach and disciple relationship, or a coach student, or teacher student relationship, whatever you want to call that. That relationship, I think, is one of the purest forms of human conduct, because the role of the leader, a pure leader or pure coach and a student, is that they're trying to bring out the best within you. It's the beauty of that, right? And the quality of a coach, for example, is the ability for people to transform, how much they can transform, and how many people you can transform are often the qualities that we determine leaders from great leaders. Great leaders influence many people over long periods of times. If you look at, say, Krishna, Buddha, and Jesus, probably the greatest leaders on the planet's history, because their doctrines have influenced millions of people for thousands of years. So I think they didn't have the internet. Some of them didn't even have, like any recording devices or videos, or they didn't have any of the technology, yet they still influence for thousands of years the thinking and processes and practices of great masses of people, which is pretty incredible if you think about it. And so that is the power of someone with a vision. And a vision, in order to maintain that vision, you are going to require fortitude. And that means your ability to withstand the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, to hack up and misquote the eloquence of Shakespeare. What does that mean? Okay, is to have a vision for yourself that is outside your common tribal dynamics. We talked about tribalism earlier. And say, I want this for my life. And to recognize that by deciding to do that, you are going to meet resistance from those around you, because that's their identity that is threatened. Their version of who you are fits within their identity. And when you change that, you threaten their identity with your choice to go that way. And it's not that you're threatening their identity. I'm going to qualify that. It appears as a threat to them because you're changing who you are. And so on some level that changes who they are. And that feels involuntary because most people are too wrapped up in what other people think of them. Once you let go of that, then it's an easy transit. And the amount of resistance and friction that you feel when becoming a leader from those around you, then you can recognize that is because of your deep concern about what other people think about you. And a great leader needs to be able to have the fortitude to withstand incredible levels of criticism, to be misidentified, to be misrepresented, to be mischaracterized. A good example of that in today's world, I think, is Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is a University of Toronto professor here in Canada, who was, an intellectual living in relative obscurity until he decided to say, no, I don't think the government should compel speech, and has been represented as a misogynist, or he's anti a variety of different groups and genders and all that. And he's not. He's not that. He's against compelled speech. And so he felt that there should not be a politicalization of biological science, which he is a biological behavior scientist. And there is millions of people who hate this guy, who, attack him violently, who follow procedures I think are quite heinous, but he's willing to take a stand. And right or wrong, and I think there's certainly a lot of evidence to support what he's talking about, he's able to withstand incredible amounts of criticism and showed incredible amounts of leadership and has impacted the world in a very positive way. And he's pissed off a lot of people too. And a leader is going to do that. And beware of the leader who is not willing to stand firm in the face of criticism. That doesn't mean they doesn't listen to the criticism or respond to the criticism, but they don't lose sight of the vision. And in your own lives, if you have a vision for your future, you are going to face that and you're going to experience that. And that's why it's important to have also to have a leader that you're mentoring under, because they're going to tell you, hey, yeah, I've gone through that. I know what that's like. Oh, okay, this is normal. Okay, my family thinks I'm crazy. Okay, nobody understands why I'm doing this. That's okay. I'm spending all my money on this and it's not working, but I'm spending all my time. I'm spending all my resources. And that's what it takes oftentimes. And you need to engage in that oftentimes for years, maybe decades. In the case of people like Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 28 years or something like that. It's 20-some years. don't quote me on that. It's a long period of time in a very dark place. Gandhi was imprisoned. Both him and Martin Luther King were shot. Okay, and the price of extreme leadership is extreme. It is your life. And if you want to look into the principles of that, there's a great book out by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. It's a book that I have everybody in one of the companies that I run read. And I encourage all my leaders to read that, to understand what extreme ownership. It's about how the Navy SEALs fight and win. And it's a very touching story about one of the most decorated Navy SEALs in the history of the United States, Jocko Willink, who has one of the most horrific things happen to him under his watch, under his command, and how he took ownership of that, which potentially meant the ruin of his career. People died, people were maimed because of it, friends, brothers, and the most extreme conditions ever, and how he came out of that and found peace and found influence to the rest of the world. It's a very powerful story, and there's great lessons in conditions that I hope none of us will ever have to face. So that fortitude to stand in there. So what does it take? How does vision come into place? Well, you need to take a series of actions over a long period of time. And we call this discipline. So for many years, people used to ask me, Wade, how are you so disciplined? How are you able to stay on a diet for 10 years? How are you able to go every day and train until your eyes bleed and fall down? Lamont over here witnessed that. In fact, that's how we started our friendship. He thought I was an asshole, and he was correct, because I was not being influenced by what was happening in my gym. I didn't talk to people. I wasn't engaging people. I was on my vision. I was on my mission. And he had the courage to say, hey, what's the matter with you, man? And I enjoyed that about him. And we shared a fermented beverage at the time, maybe a few more. And we've been friends ever since. I don't think it was kombucha, but anyways. So we've been friends for 25 years or something like that now. And I had a vision and I had discipline. Discipline comes not out of your ability to restrict what it is that you're doing. That's what most people see discipline is. I believe that discipline comes from having a vision so compelling of your future that every action, every ounce of energy, every piece of focus is directed towards that. And it is the elimination of extraneous expenditure of energy. So that you are not devoting energy into anything else other than what is your vision. And the enemy to that is this thing. The text, the email, the Facebook post, the social media post. And that seems kind of funny because I promote online businesses, which leverage that. Because the thing is what's interesting about these things is I spend about 10% of my time. Let's qualify. I think it's about 80-20. I spend approximately 20% of my time listening to what's going on or seeing what's happening in social media. And I have 80% putting stuff out in social media. Because putting stuff out is what's going to bring in, because that's where people are. People are on social media. People are on there, and I know that's where they are. So I need to talk to you out there. Hi there. I need to talk to you on social media. I need to talk to you in these means, because this is the way that humans are communicating now. Before, we used to walk over to the neighbor's house. Before, we knew everybody in our community. Today, we don't know anybody in our building. We don't know any better in a community, but we talk to people on Skype on the other side of the world. It's very bizarre. I do believe that humans are actually merging into a singular species. Might be called you can call it Homo Deus or Homo Spiritus or Homo Unitus, that we are actually laying the foundation, and the internet is the interlink of a nervous system for all of humanity to work as a singular thing. So what we're seeing as apparent chaos and friction is actually a normal aspect of the developmental nature of an organism developing a super nervous system and a super consciousness of all these people connected in, and that we are not actually independent from technology. It is part of us and we are part of it. And technology exists in both biological and non-biological forms. So what does that mean? Well, if you have a vision for your future, you need to have the discipline comes out of how much activity you put before it and your ability to reduce that. Most people admire high performance athletes or high performance artists, or we recognize excellence. Would you agree that we recognize excellence? And it's recognized in art, it's recognized in sports, it's recognized in business. And if you study all of these people, the principles are saying an almost insane level of focus and commitment to something over an extended period of time. And so if you want success in business, if you want success in your relationships, if you want success in your health, if you want success in any singular area of life, you need to immerse yourself. You need to commit to immersion within that particular field, and that will allow you to achieve greatness. And eventually you'll be sought out and recognized as a leader, whether you want it or not. What you do with that information is yours. Sometimes some people reject leadership. It's not for them. They don't want to do that. And I understand that. It's noble to pursue those things on your own, for your own satisfaction. But I believe it is nobler still to take what you have learned and share that with the greater aspects of humanity. And that's what leaderships do. And so discipline is defined by your ability to stay focused on that task for long periods of time without I would say, the traditional forms of gratification, money, accolades, from the public, whatever it is, that you don't care what price you're going to pay. And I always thought it was summed up best in Pumping Iron by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who in a lot of ways, in the one thing about all our heroes, they all have fatal flaws, and he's had his challenges. But if you look at him in the modern era, he was a successful high-performance athlete in his early 20s, a world champion. Then he became a multimillionaire when there was no money in his sport at the time. Keep in mind, there was no money in bodybuilding. There still isn't any money in bodybuilding, but the bottom line is he was able to become that. Then he became the highest actor in the world. And then he became the governor of the fourth largest economy in the world of California, even as a foreign resident. So those are four very complicated, difficult, hard to reach areas, which there's less than 100 people who have achieved that result in the world's existence. And he did it in four different areas. So he was my mentor. Okay, that's where I got a lot of these principles, and I found that. And if Arnold said it, I did it. And if Arnold didn't, forget about it. And he said in Pumping Iron, he said, if you want to become a champion, you're going to need to go, when the pain comes, the pain comes at 10th or 11th or 12th rep. He says you need to go push through this pain and go to the 12th or the 13th or the 14th rep. And if you fall down and pass out, it's fine. If you vomit in the gym, that's fine. He says, I've done that many times. You go through this pain period, maybe you become a champion. You don't go through this, you might as well forget about it. And it's the same thing in your lives, your personal lives, your business lives, your financial lives, whatever it is that's going on in your life. You got to go through the pain period. Do not kid yourself. There will be a pain period. And that pain period is your old identity coming up with your new identity, which are in conflict. Because the second that you are completely in alignment with who you wish to be or what it is that you wish to do, it will happen instantaneously at that moment. Because time is a perception. It's not real. That's why they have the time-space continuum. All possibilities exist simultaneously. And when the confluence of complete ownership on all levels happens with the present moment, this is the experience of a miracle. That miracle can transpire over decades or it can happen in an instant. directly by the level of your ability to immerse yourself into your vision and become it. Fortitude. We talked about this earlier. Fortitude is your ability to manage the feedback of your incompetence. I always say anything worth doing is worth doing poorly, because you'll suck at it when you start. And I had, since I can remember as a child, I had one redeeming quality. And I think it was an astounding level of stupidity. And that means regardless of the feedback that I received, regardless of how incompetent I was in a particular area, for some reason it didn't register that I was incompetent. I don't know why. So I had no business being a bodybuilder. It took me 10 years to win my first show. It took me 16 years to win my first national championship and go to the Worlds. And during that time, I just saw that I was right on track. At 9 years in, I had lost all my money. My high school sweetheart and I broke up because I didn't want a white picket fence. I had dreams of California and bodybuilding success and this. I was living in the basement of my parents' house because I had lost all this. I was drowning in student debt. And I remember beating on a fence out in the middle of the field with a big lump in my throat going, I said I wouldn't be in this situation and I'm here. And I felt like crying, but I was conditioned to suppress my emotions, so I didn't, but I felt like it. And inside of that moment, I said, I don't know how I'm going to change this. I just know that I must. When I lost the contest 4 months later from that moment in a close decision, the person came to me, the head judge, who was a 3-time national champion and former Mr. Universe competitor. And he came to me and he said, it was a close decision. I think we made a mistake. I'm really sorry about that. And I said to him, you didn't make a mistake. It was too close. It's a subjective sport. Thank you. I'm going to prepare for next year. Now, most people start preparing for a contest 12 weeks or maybe 16 weeks. They start their contest diet or contest preparation. They're training, but contest mode's a whole other level. The greatest, the best, the most hardcore go 20 weeks. I said at that moment, I'm 50 weeks out from this championship next year, because it was 2 weeks after. I am going to start training for that contest now, because if it's 50 weeks out, each week represents 2% of how I'm going to look that particular day, because that's how you're designed. It's a cosmetic sport. And I started preparing for that contest then, because I said, I'm going to wipe everybody out. I need to be that much better. And so I engaged in that. And that's when Lamont and I met, and I developed what I would call superior levels of focus and persistence. And I couldn't walk right for 9 months. I would step off a sidewalk and I would fall down on the ground. My parents thought I was crazy. My girlfriend thought I was crazy. Even my friends thought I was crazy. And I didn't care. I didn't care if I fell down. I didn't care if I couldn't walk home. I didn't care if I couldn't drive home. I was going to achieve this goal. And when I did, and I visualized it over and over, and I had my music, and the day that it happened exactly to the T on stage, exactly as I had visualized it in my mind. And Andre Agassi echoed it when he won Wimbledon for the first time. The announcer asked him, he goes, how did it feel when you won Wimbledon? What was the experience like? And he said, I had already done this thousands of times before. It was exactly as I expected. And I relate it to that. And when I came backstage after that 10 years, and I sat there, and after the pictures were taken, and my friends are waiting for me, my family's waiting for me, everyone's here to celebrate with me. It was an incredible experience. And I'm backstage, and I sat down backstage and I had a moment, and I said to myself, because remember, I'd failed for 10 straight years. I said, I want every single person in the world to experience the sense of satisfaction I experience in this moment in whatever endeavor they did. And I will dedicate my life to sharing this with other people. That was the decision I made in that moment. And I did. And I've done it ever since. I never told that to anybody, by the way. So discipline and fortitude came out of a strong vision. And you need to cultivate persistence. Persistence is what we call the process that a leader must engage in and withstand the highs and the lows, the devastations, the financial components, the social consequences, the physical consequences, the mental consequences. There are consequences to every choice that you make. Leaders understand that. Leaders understand there will be collateral damage. There will be people that are negatively affected by your choices. And you can have empathy for that, but you cannot be swayed by it. And that's why it's important to embed your leadership in terminology, in an aspects of ethics, so that you are able to do the right thing at the right time, no matter what, even though it's going to negatively affect some people, but it's for the greater good. But you better make sure that you know what the hell the greater good is. And you'll make mistakes. And a great leader is going to come back and say, you know what? I messed up on that one and I'm sorry. And the only way out of that, whether you are a leader or you are being led, is to have compassion for yourself, but also have compassion for the leaders, because those who take leadership roles take on, I would say, a disproportionate amount of the negative responsibility as well as the positive accolades. And that sucks. That really sucks. And we need leaders. We need leaders in our homes. We need leaders in our business. We need leaders in our families. And we need leaders in our politics, in our nation states, in our communities. We really do. And which leads me to the next quality, which is humility. We were talking about this earlier with a group of us. The one emotion that I think people avoid the most is humiliation. Has anybody here, raise their hand, been humiliated? Yeah. And humiliation is oftentimes within a public group where you are called out for not being what you hope to be. Now that may, and I believe oftentimes that is no fault of yours. Oftentimes you did your best at that moment, but because you put your out in a public arena, you spoke in front of the class and stammered. You tried to score the goal at the event and missed the net, fell on your face. You tried to be the right relationship person and you told a white lie to the wrong person and it came back to you. Or it happened with a police officer or an authority figure, a teacher, a coach, a professional, a friend, a lover, a community, a group. And if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to be exposed and it's not safe. And the only way out of humiliation as a leader is to have humility enough to say, I don't have it all figured out. To say, This is the best that we can do right now, and we are continuing to move to get better. And I am engaged in a process to upgrade and improve my own thinking, my own beliefs, my own operational parameters, my own communication levels. And yes, I have fallacies. Yes, I have problems. Yes, I have character defects. Yes, I have personality challenges, communication challenges, intelligence challenges, emotional challenges, but I'm going to go out there and do it anyways. And I'm going to listen to your feedback, and I'm going to try and do a better job. But I will not be stopped by your criticism. I will not be stopped by your judgment, because everybody's judging everybody all the time. But people go, I don't want to be judged. Too late. You're on the planet. You're being judged. Okay, so give it up. Humility says you can judge me, but you cannot define me. Okay? That's what leadership requires. Humility has the ability. And so if you look at, I think one of the great biographies is Mahatma Gandhi's My Experiments with Truth. And so here is a person recognized, Mahatma means great soul, you know, as this great leader. And yet he was so humble in revealing his own darkest personality character defects, his inability to follow some of the values and principles that he espoused, and is recognized as a saint and had the ability to do that. And one of my spiritual teachers says, a saint is a sinner who never gave up. Jesus said, he who is without sin cast the first stone. The Buddha said the only sin is ignorance. So all of us suffer from ignorance. Everybody. And as a leader, we have to recognize that no matter how good I get, no matter how many people I influence, no matter how much good I do in the world, I've got areas of my life that I can work on. And I'm no different than other people. I'm no different than other lives. You know, I'm just me doing the best that I darn well can. And that's it. And you can join the revolution or the evolution or whatever you want to call it, or the solution or whatever that is. But at the end of the day, we're all just kind of a little bit lost. And that's okay. Little by little, piece by piece, step by step, we walked out of the plains of savannas. The people who persist and showed leadership, the woman with the small child with her entire group was slaughtered 10,000 years ago, and she kept surviving. The people that went over the mountains out of the savannah and withstood furs. You know, they had the freezing cold and had to use animal furs. And the people that suffered violent attacks and had to scrounge through their lives to go there. The people that sailed in ships over here. The people that endured all the challenges of all humanity, put their artworks on the cave walls, wrote their lessons in scrolls, sang their stories in songs. That is all of our heritage. It's all of us. We're all humans. We're all part of that story. Our ancestors all gave us to this moment. So they didn't get it all right, but they did the best that they could within the situation that they had. And you do not know what the smallest decisions that you make in this life will echo for generations. And when you align yourself, you say, well, I can't be that. I can't be the movie star, or I can't be the athlete, or I can't be the leader. Yes, that might be true. But your decisions today to set and your vision forward and to take leadership of your own life and those people that are in your community, those things echo down to your family members, or they echo to the people in your influence. And those things make decisions inside of your life that carry on, because every single person in this room had somebody that said something to them at some point in life that was a tiny interaction for 5 seconds that changed your perception of who you are or who you could be. And from that, that was enough spark to start a fire that allowed you to carry forward in some area of your life. Do we hear that? And so why can't you be that person? It doesn't matter if you lead 1 billion people. Lead yourself. Lead that. And that is what leadership is. And the only way to do that is to recognize I don't have to be perfect. I'm perfect as I am. And I'm in a process of improvement. As I said earlier, mastery is not a destination. It is a process. And before we close up, I got a couple more things to talk about. Inside of leadership, you need to have some form of accountability. And accountability is oftentimes painful. I've struggled with it in my own organizations. I've struggled with it in my own life. Whether that's accountability to my friends, to the people I work with, to my organizations, to my family, to the government. It's an ongoing process. And I don't always get it right. But accountability is implementing some form of feedback system to give you feedback as to where you are. Because you cannot get anywhere if you don't know where you are. We're all lost. We're floating on some piece of dirt with some water on it at some inconspicuous form in this little tiny inconspicuous galaxy on the corner of this giant universe. It's the most far out trip ever. People go, my life sucks. You have a life. You exist somewhere in this ginormous, inconceivable ball of like craziness. Fires and asteroids and planets and stars and galaxies and like gas and like it's nuts. You can't even conceive of it. It's so big. And we go, my life sucks. You have one. Therefore, you're worthy. The universe created you. You exist. That's all the worthiness that you ever need. I always say the biggest problem of living in cities today, as most of the population is now, is that we can't see the stars. Because if you've got problems in life, go someplace where you can look up at the stars. And those are the same stars that every person that ever existed on this planet has looked up at and wondered. Who am I? Where am I? What am I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? And there's been a lot of stories about that. And nobody knows. Nobody. Nobody knows. So what do we know? We don't know anything. Accountability is like the GPS in your life. It tells you where you're at. Now, the destination is your vision. Accountability says, yep, I'm here on the map. We're not at my vision yet. We're not there yet. We're going to keep moving. We're going to keeping actions. We're going to keep turning the car. We're going to keep it course adjusting. It's not a straight path. There's no straight lines in the universe. None. They're mathematical concepts that humans created, which don't work in reality. The straight line is an idea. It is not something. We're always going in and out. The direction is where we're headed. The feedback system is the accountability. Building an accountability system, whether it's accounting, whether it's your calendar. People say, you want to know what success is? Let me see your calendar. I can tell you how successful you are by your calendar, how you determine your time. Because no matter how much money you get, we all have 24 hours in a day. How you use that 24 hours determines your effectiveness. How your effectiveness determines how you're going to be able to produce results. The results that you produce need to feed within an accountability system that are relative to the direction and vision that you're trying to go to. So that's a process and ongoing, and you need to upgrade it. You need to change it as your visions change in life. And visions can change in life, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And the final piece before we go here at the Digital Republic, I know I've been talking up here, guys. Sorry about that. Because I got a great room of wonderful people, is passion. Right now, we are in a very interesting time on the planet. and that is the rise of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is intelligence decoupled from consciousness. And I believe that consciousness is a composition of intelligence and emotionality represented in the biological organism. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just my version of it. Now, there is a lot of dark side to passion. Okay? People get angry, people kill each other, people fight. That's the dark side. It's also what connects people. It creates community. It creates love. It creates humans. Humans are born out of passion. Passion in its highest form, I believe, is unconditional love. In its lowest form, it is the elimination and extermination of all others at any cost. And you can go up the chart or down the chart and the variance of that. If you want to get into all that stuff, I would recommend Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force, his map of consciousness. He does a great job of explaining it, and he's far more qualified to do so than I am. But passion, cultivating real passion. Anytime, one of the reasons I think we love children is the passion they exude for the smallest things in life. And it activates our emotionality, our recognition of when we were passionate about dinosaurs, or passionate about Barbies, or about figure skating, or a birthday party, or going to the beach. And it's one of the beautiful things that children teach us. They remind us of the passion that we lose in life as we get caught in the gears of the world that grind our souls to bits, when we get lost in who we are, when our identification becomes too enrolled in the external and not enough in the internal. And the only way that you can maintain your passion is to surround yourself with people who are passionate about what you're doing. You have to study passion. You have to express passion. You have to participate in that. And right now, one of the only places to do that is a sporting event. People are so desperate for passion. They will line up in the streets to celebrate. I saw millions of people on TV, not just in Toronto, across the entire nation, because sports right now is the only place where you can safely express passion and not be condemned. You can yell, you can scream, you can get excited, and it's okay. Something that was part of tribal life for millions of years has somehow been compressed by the technocratic culture that we find ourselves in today, which we have these great advances in technological evolution. And unfortunately, we sacrificed our emotionality and our passionate components of our biological selves. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for two, but we have not learned to embrace passion with intelligence. And the danger of artificial intelligence is the decoupling of our biological sense of emotionality and connection, which we articulate as passion, with just pure intelligence, procedure, activity, and information. And our goal and our role, and the great thing that we are pledged with today, is to find our place as humans inside of that. And I believe that each and every one of us here today has an opportunity to embrace leadership in their lives so that we can carve out the balance between these two emerging sciences and technologies in the world. Instead of losing our humanity, we can transcend from the limits that we've had up to this point within it. And so I'm going to close with this. I would invite each and every one of you to consider over the next week, the next month, What are you most passionate about? How can you be a leader in the areas that you're most challenged with or the areas that you're most passionate with? Who is the leaders in your life that you are following and modeling? And how can you take those principles and apply them to the community or the family or the organization or the career that you're currently in? And if you do that, this talk will be a success. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining me. This is the No BS France from the Digital Republic. I'm Way T Lightheart. We do them every Monday night. So wherever you are, good night, and I love you all.